Have you ever wondered why it seems like when Republicans have power, they accomplish so much, but when Democrats have the same opportunity, it seems like they don't do anything at all? The common answer might be that Republicans are just better at politics, but I think the truth is actually in the approach. For the last decade or so, the Republican Party has been co-opted by an insurgent body known as the Make America Great Again movement, or MAGA. And their behavior, their tactics, their strategy has been more closely in line with that of the Taliban than traditional Rhino Republicans. Refusal to operate within political norms, the rejection of legal boundaries, the consolidation of power, and the targeting of political enemies, these are tenets and tactics of terrorists and not politicians. To address MAGA as a political party is to ignore danger, jeopardize national security, and further American polarity. This is not conspiracy. I have sources to back up every claim I make in this video. Office hours are open. Let's learn something.
I hope so.
For those of you that don't know, I'm your host, Jay Halfaday, flyest man on the internet. And this is the Halfaday Show, a platform for the culture, by the culture, brought to you by a cultural geographer with about a decade of experience in intelligence, national security, policy, and more. That's why you should listen. That's why you should care. But we're going to get into the nitty gritty, the meats and potato, whatever you want to talk about, whatever you want to call it, into why I think MAGA is a terrorist organization and why we need to approach them as such and how to counter it. We're going to talk about the structure. Actually, put a little bit of a diagram up. Please keep put up a diagram. We're going to cover 5 S's: structure, strategy, studies. Nope. Let's go back. Put up a diagram. We're going to cover this video 5 S's: structure, strategy, signal, studies, and solution. Give me about an hour. I promise you'll be more informed about how to counter MAGA, why they're doing what they're doing, why it's effective, and how to put an end to it, most importantly. But it goes without saying, all thoughts are my own. I've never had to say that in a video, but if this does go viral, that's my disclaimer. I took this class on insurgency, graduate level coursework. I got an A+ on this final paper. I feel really confident in my findings, and I wanted to share them all with you. So if the framing seems dramatic, it is content, but I do feel that way. So when you think about insurgency, you probably think about the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, ISIS. If you're black, you might think of insurgency in the form of COINTELPRO. It's not a conspiracy, it's a real thing. But I want to challenge the traditional framework of insurgency and look a little bit inward. I don't agree with the American Western hegemony that they have over these definitions of terrorism, insurgency, intelligence, all the things they say the bad guys do. I want to push back and challenge these things directly and look inward, because at the end of the day, anybody can be a terrorist. Anybody can do terrorism. Google's going to give you one definition. I'm going to give you another. The Halfaday definition of insurgency. Insurgency is either a process or an event. A violent process or a violent event. One or the other, but it has to have violence, whether that be structural, systemic, or real physical, in your face, shoot you, bang, 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 violence. Either way, this violence is perpetuated through a process or an event to accomplish and obtain political power, real power. So historically, power looked like land, power looked like weapons, power looked like military might. But in the modern day and age, power might actually just be having a political party backing you. It might be having 1 million followers. It might be having intelligence or real deal knowledge about your enemies. It might be just being able to say, this is our turf and ain't nobody crossing that motherfucker. Being able to draw red lines. And naturally, anybody that carries out or participates in insurgency is an insurgent or a terrorist group. So now remember when I say that everybody else in my cohort was looking at outside of the United States for terrorist and insurgent groups, I'm probably the only one that looked inward and said, hey, what are some examples of domestic insurgent groups? Can insurgency exist in America? Is it a society or a place that has the structure to allow insurgency to actually be carried out? Or is this a uniquely non-Western phenomena? I don't agree with that. So with the idea that anybody can be a terrorist, why has nobody thought to look at MAGA or any other political group in America as a terrorist organization. The reason is because America and the West have a monopoly on the definitions. When you think about insurgency, terrorism, genocide, war crimes, all of these terms are coined by Western forces. So when it comes to what's the expression? History is written by the winners. Definitions are written by the grandchildren. When we're talking about insurgency and terrorism, these are terms that derived after the fact, after these actions, after 9/11. They've always been around. They've always been things that we could conceptualize, but we didn't have a pretty name for it. And now that we have a pretty name for it, we don't want to say that anybody else can call us these things. These are only for the bad guys. Only Al-Qaeda, only Taliban, only ISIS, only Hamas, not us. But if you look at the actions in a vacuum, it's really hard to draw that line between just politics and insurgency. So I have some examples, and I'm going to get them in just a second. And I want y'all to let me know if these were carried out by a politician or a terrorist. You ready? Kidnapping a foreign head of state. Is that a terrorist or a politician? Blowing up a general's car. Terrorist or politician? Storming the Capitol building of a sovereign nation. Terrorist or politician? That's a hard one. Here's a layup. You guys, you ready for this one? Coercing the police or military to kill unarmed civilians. Did a politician order that or a terrorist? And lastly, blowing up cargo ships in the Caribbean because you thought they had drugs. Terrorist or politician? You know, when you look at these examples, it's really, really foggy and hard to tell which is which. But if any other country on the nation did any of those actions, it would be an automatic, yeah, that's a terrorist organization. But when it's conducted by the United States military, I don't know, you guys. You know, national security, border security, the immigrants. But it's these type of questions and these sort of themes that I was thinking about in this graduate course. I have to emphasize that, hey, this is a research paper that got really high marks. Shout out to Penn State, by the way. Don't rescind my degree. Y'all the ones that gave me the A. Anyway, these are the themes that got me to look inward, not just at America, but specifically at MAGA. And we're going to get into that when we talk about the structure specifically. Now, if you're a nerd or you're just overly contrarian, you might ask, if MAGA's a terrorist organization, what does that make Antifa? Right question, wrong time. And I promise you I will answer that question before this video ends. So how did I do it? One, I did the knowledge. Shout out to Deontay, man. Literature review. Deadass, over 10 sources. Practical case studies from the first Trump administration and the second one. And then finally, I produced practical policy recommendations on how you can counter, combat, and eventually defeat these MAGA terrorists. And then finally, I made this video. And hopefully all of this helps to assist the counterparty or whatever the counterinsurgency force may be in figuring out how to meet this moment and to respond better to MAGA. It gives us a better picture of what we're looking at and how to deal with them, because this isn't normal and they're not behaving like a political party. They're in fact behaving like a terrorist organization. All right, let's put this right here. Need both my hands for this. Let's talk about structure. But first,
warning, academic jargon. Warning, academic jargon.
Thank you for that warning system. Anyway, keep an eye on your screen for citations, key terms, key themes, little helpful gestures and things around here to help you understand what I'm talking about. Because again, this came from an academic research paper. This wasn't some willy-nilly op-ed or some regular white paper. No, this has a lot of scholarship and literature behind it. And I want you guys to really learn and understand the things that I'm talking about. To understand the structure of MAGA, you need to understand the model that I applied when I was thinking about this research project. So I approached this project by examining MAGA under the lens of a party-linked terrorist organization, PLT. It's in the game. So a PLT is basically what happens when an entity straddles the line between legitimate political organization and real material violence. And historically, this is not an uncommon thing. I thought this was something that was uniquely particular to MAGA, but actually we see this in other places in the world. In fact, it usually happens the other way. You have a violent force that has like a terrorist event, like the Taliban or Al-Qaeda, and then later on in life, they end up becoming a legitimate political party. And now you have MAGA, who was a legitimate political party and now is carrying out violence. See how that works? But specifically in this PLT, the organization is really simple. It's almost flat, just like the back of J.D. Vance's head. It has two components. You have a parent body and you have the operational arm. So the parent body is the formal, legal, legit aspect of this organization. They're the head honchos. They're the media attention. They're the real deal. They're what we know MAGA as. I would say we know and love MAGA, but don't nobody know and love MAGA in this house, especially not me. So we have that in mind. They pool the resource. They consolidate the power. They give out the signals, and we'll talk about that later. The operational arm, however, this is the ones that get into the field. These are your goons. These are your Turning Point USA. These are your Proud Boys. These are your Patriot Fronts. These are your Groypers. These are the people that act outside of the legitimate realm of politics and in between the weeds of J.D. Vance, Elon Musk, and Reddit. That's sort of the flow chart of MAGA as a PLT. So some of the benefits that you have of operating within this structure are a really high level of durability politically. Like some of the things that Donald Trump has gotten away with over the years would have killed a political party in the days and age of the Clintons, Bushes, even Obama. But now people brush that off because the operational arm is in the field radicalizing people on the behest of the parent body. The other benefit is plausible deniability. There's really no way of connecting the dots between the things that the president says legally and the actions that happen, unless you're talking about January 6th. But that's another event, and that's another story. Maybe another video. Maybe it's this video. I don't know. But you have plausible deniability and you have increased durability. Both of these things make MAGA incredibly well insulated, and they allow MAGA to sort of slip off and navigate in between political threats, real threats, and things that might take away the power that they have consolidated. But it's also what makes them very vulnerable. Because so much of the attention, power, and authority is consolidated in that parent body, once that parent body is a lame duck, or once that parent body is no longer legitimate, things get a little bit sketchy for the operational arm. They don't have that top coverage. They don't have that sort of protection of the White House that shields them from the, no, we won't alienate the Groypers. We won't, what's the word I'm looking for? We won't condemn the things that Nick Fuentes says. We won't do all those things. And the reason is because the two of them are behind the scenes besties. In public, no, I don't know them niggas. Now, if I wanted to continue this research, I could expand on these connections, these signals, the structure, and really put out an entire organizational chart of MAGA as a terrorist organization. But that will require some actual in-depth field research. And I don't feel like being around white supremacists, if I'm being honest with y'all. So we'll leave it right there. It's a simple structure, two components, parent body, operational arm. They communicate through signals and responses. Think January 6th. Think the White House or the DHS Twitter account posting all of these subliminal white supremacist ethnocentric messages that only the dog whistles can hear. Only the dogs can hear the dog whistles. You know what I mean? But we'll get into the specifics of the signals and the strategies a little bit more later on in this video. But I want you guys to keep these things in mind as we progress.